Alright then, since we successfully finished the settings page, now we can move on to our billboard section. So what we have to do is I'm gonna close everything, close all, and let's make sure our server is up and running. So npm run dev. Okay, so let me refresh it over here. Okay, so let me keep it a little bit apart from there. Okay, this is perfectly fine. So now what we need to do is let's jump back to the main nav. So open the main nav.tsx. This is the place where we are bringing our overview and settings and everything, right? So at this point, what we have to do is I'm going to create one more route. So I'm going to copy this, or let's copy this settings better, and I'm going to paste it. And instead of this settings, it's going to be billboards. So copy this billboards and paste it one more time, and paste it one more time over here, and change it to caps letter. So now you should be able to see the billboards over there. So let's go ahead and create ourselves the billboards route. So let's jump and let me collapse everything. Go to the app, go inside the store ID, dashboard, store ID, routes, and under the routes, I'm going to create a new folder called billboards. And inside this billboards, I'm going to create page.tsx, right? So now inside this billboards, of course, what is it going to be? It is going to show the billboards, right? So let's say sfc billboards and div, let's say billboards or something. Save these changes. Now if you click this billboards, you should be able to see that billboards over here. Fine, it's working fine. So now let's open up our types.db, types.db.ts, just exactly the same way how we created ourselves the store types. So we have to create ourselves. So export interface billboards, billboards, BOARDS, billboards, open it, and ID, of course, it's going to be string. Then we need to have the label, what kind of label it is, so string. Then we need to have the image URL, so it's going to have the image URL, that is also going to be string. Then we can simply copy and paste these two, copy and paste it. These are the things, right? Let's jump into the billboards now. So now what we have to do, if you have a look at over here, this billboards, so basically it's going to display the data table. So don't worry about the data table and everything. So first we have to bring this title section, and once I click this add new, so you might notice that by default it's pushing the user to the billboards new, right? So we are sending the new as the parameter. So we are trying to figure it out. If we are sending the ID, we're going to load that data. If we are not sending the ID and we are sending simply something else, then it should create the new billboard. So that's how we are going to do now. So let's get back over here. So let's bring this billboards and everything. So what I'm going to do is class name, which is going to be flex column. Okay, and inside this I'm going to bring one more division, and that is going to be class name and flex 1, okay, and space y is equals to 4, and padding it's going to be 8, and padding stop it's going to be 6. And inside this division, now we are going to bring a separate client, and we are going to load all these stuffs inside that separate client. So in order to do that, what we are going to do is, so we are going to create a separate billboard client, which is going to be a client side component. So let's create a new components folder inside init components, and I'm going to create a new file called client.tsx, and I'm going to mark this as use client and rafc, and that is going to be billboard client, something like that. So I don't need this anymore, so let me delete it. And for this, I'm going to bring that billboard client. Let's load it inside here. So now if you save this, you should be able to see the billboard client, which is loading the data, right? So later we'll fetch the data and we'll display that data to over inside the billboard, because that's the place where we are going to bring the details and everything, right? But for the time being, inside here, what are the things that we needed? So we needed we needed the routers and we needed the params. So I'm just going to say const params is equals to use params from where next navigation, and const router is equals to use router from where next navigation. These are the two objects that we needed for the time being, and I'm gonna delete this and open some React fragments, and inside here I'm gonna create a division which is going to have a flex class name, flex item center, justified between, and inside here we are going to bring that heading component which we created, and we need to supply the title for it, title, and title, of course, it's going to be a dynamic string literals, because later we need to display how many billboards we created. So billboards, and for the time being I'm just going to display the number as 0, something like that. Then I need to display the description. So of course the description is going to be manage billboards for your store, something like that. So that is going to be the description. So the reason why we are using this is because over here we need to display how many billboards we do have, like this, just like that. So just for that purpose we are going to display the number over there, right? Then right after that you can see we are having a button which is helps the user to navigate. So I'm going to create a button component from UI button, and it's going to have plus, and it's going to have a text called add new, and this button icon is going to have height as 4, width also 4, and margin right is going to be 2. And for this button class name, so far we don't need, because I'm not going to change any colors and anything, so I don't need to do anything. So but on click I'm gonna call a callback function for this. So that callback function is going to push the user. So router dot push, it's going to push the user to the very specific route. So slash dollar, so I need to get the store ID. So params dot store ID, so that we already have on the URL itself. Then it's need to push the user to the billboards slash new, right? So billboards slash new. So save these changes. Now you should be able to see the button, but if you click this it will navigate it to that route, but you will get 404 error. But because the reason is because we don't have that specific route yet. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to pass a dynamic ID which is going to be the billboard ID, and inside this page I'm gonna have page.tsx. Inside that route we have the page.tsx, right? So over here let's create that billboard page, billboard page div. For the time being let's give it as billboard page itself. Save these changes. Now so if you refresh this, we are getting an error. Clerk auth was called, but the clerk detected usage of clerk middleware. So wait a second. Okay, so now if we are going to billboards, and if I go into the, okay, it's working fine, but if I refresh it I'm getting a runtime issue. I'm not sure why. So let's worry about this later. For the time being let's ignore it, or else. All right, so let's check that issue later. For the time being let's ignore it. Okay, so now we have the add new options, and now all we have to do is to, whenever I jump into this new route, I need to figure it out whether I'm passing the ID or I'm getting this new parameter over there. So even though if you're sending it simply as a new, it will identify it as the billboard ID. So we don't have that particular billboard ID in our database, right? So if that is data is not there, then in that specific billboard page, now what we have to do is to, I need to get all those required parameters first. So async, I'm gonna get the params, and that params, it's going to be the params which going to have the object of billboard id and the store id. So we have to get these both. So let me copy this store id, that is going to be string. Then I need to get this billboard id as well. I'm going to copy this, make sure both are same. So that's the reason I'm copying and pasting it from there. Save. All right, now you should get this billboard id. Okay, so over here now in this thing, so why we are getting this issue, I'm not sure. It's constantly giving this issue for us. It's showing us clerk authentication is constantly rising as an issue. So let me stop the server and let me rerun it. All right, so I'm not sure why this error is happening. So let's try it one more time. I'm just going to delete this completely. Delete it. Okay. So we are ran into 404 error. But apart from that location, from anywhere, if I refresh this, entirely it's working perfectly as it's supposed to be. See? So let's check it out. Now, what we can do is, we are inside the client section, right? So over here, this is the place where we are pushing the router. So router slash, or what we can do is billboards slash new everything is perfectly fine as it's supposed to be. Store id is there, we added the slash before new. Okay, let's check it out now. So inside this billboards, I'm gonna create a new folder called billboard id. So let's copy that id, copy it, and inside here I'm gonna create page.tsx and sfc, that is going to be billboard page div. This is the billboard page or something. Save the changes. Now if I click this, we are getting an error. I think in the dashboard layout we are getting an error. I'm not sure why it is keep on showing the error. This middleware, it's making it a little bit mess over here. Even I tried to change it like this, include every single path. If I ignore this right now, let's check it out. Let's ignore this and let's export. Let's make it everything public. Later we will change those routes. Change it. Now refresh it. See, even if I'm making that as a public, still we are getting the same issue. Store id layout.cs. So we are getting 500 error, this one. So the get method, we are getting this 500 error. That's the reason I'm wondering why we are getting this as a 500 error. Not sure why we are getting that as the 500. We are not trying to get. So this is the store id. Under the routes folder only, we do have this billboards. Yes, we do have the billboards. and inside the billboards we do have this billboard id, and inside that billboard id we have this page.tsx, so it should come inside that, but we are facing issue right over there. So let's try to get the routes first. I'm gonna get the params. Let me get the params first, params. Then this is going to be the type of one more object, which is nothing but the same params itself, and inside here we are going to have that billboard id, and which is going to be the string, and we are going to have the store id, and that is also going to be the string. So over here I'm just trying to get that billboard id, params.billboard id. See if I close this, if I click this, and now here we are getting the billboard id as a new, but the point of thing is if I refresh this we are getting that error. If we are directly moving through that specific route and everything, it's working fine. If I click that, it's moving, coming up over here. But every time whenever you're making some changes, for instance, if I'm typing something and if I'm changing it, see, we are ran into that issue. I'm not sure this issue is happening. See, now we are getting the 404 error. This route, the problem is with this route, but everything is fine. Store id, routes, we are inside this routes and we are inside this billboards. It's better than what we can do. We can delete this billboards completely. Let me delete it. Okay, so let me delete it and let me revert these changes to, let's keep it as it is. Let's see what is happening. Save these changes, middleware, and now the billboards itself, of course we're gonna get an issue, right? So this is going to load that data. So now if I click the billboards itself, we are going to get an issue. Fine, that's good. Let's keep it in that way. So now let's, inside this store id we do have this routes. I'm gonna create a new folder called billboards. Then I'm gonna create a new file for it, that is going to be the page.tsx, and this is going to be, this billboard is just going to be sfc, and let's give it as billboards or something like this, and create a div, and this is going to be, this is the billboards. Save these changes. Now we are inside the billboards. So far there is no issues at all, right? So now let's get the params objects over here. So let's get the params object. So params colon, again create one more object, and that is going to be the params again, which is going to have an one more object inside, that is going to be the store id, and which is a type of string. Save these changes. Now we have the complete informations which we needed for this. Then now inside here, of course I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to create a div which is going to have class name of flex column, and inside here div class name flex1, and which is going to be space y is going to be 4 and padding 8, and padding top it's going to be 6. And inside here then we need to bring the billboard client, which we don't have yet. So if you save these changes, of course you might going to get an issue that this billboard client is not there. So now inside this what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder over here, and let me create this as underscore components, and inside this I'm going to create a new file over here called sorry, client.tsx. okay, so now inside this client.tsx, now what we are going to do, we are going to bring, so raf export const, that is going to be the billboard client. Okay, so let's delete this, and this billboard client, of course it's going to be the use client. So now you should go to the back over here and import it. So you should get the Billboard client. Fine. Now if you're refreshing it, still it's working fine. Okay, let's get back to the client. And now I'm gonna get the React fragments, create a div with a class name of flex item center and justify it in between. And here I'm gonna bring the heading tag, and this heading tag is going to have the, let's import it from the components, and this is going to have a title of Billboards, and title, of course, it is going to be dynamic string literals because we need to give the complete the count of the billboards, and the description is going to be manage billboards for your store. Save these changes. You should get the billboards over there. Fine. Now here I'm gonna get a button, and inside this button I'm gonna bring the plus from Lucid React, and that is going to have height of 4 and width of 4, and margin right is going to be 2, and we are going to have add new. So on this, on click, whenever I'm clicking, I'm going to call a callback function, and that function is going to push this user to that. So I'm just going to say const router is equals to use router from next navigation, and we need to get the params as well, is equals to use params from the next navigation. So here I'm just going to say router dot push, open it, use the dynamic string literals, and say slash dollar params dot store ID, then slash billboards ARDS billboards slash new. So make sure this matches this name exactly, right? So save these changes, and now if I click this, you should get the 404 error because we don't have this specific ID over there. So in order to do that, here we go. So now what we need to do, just exactly the same way, I'm gonna create one more subfolder in it called Billboard ID. Yep, Billboard ID. So I'm gonna copy this, enter, and inside here I'm gonna have page.tsx, and for this page.tsx, of course, now we are inside that specific route. The page.tsx doesn't have anything, so here let's say sfc, and this is going to be the billboard page, and inside here I'm just going to say this is the billboard page. Save these changes. There we go. We are on the same point now. So if I'm not using this, if I'm sending something else, yep, I think the new is not working. But if I'm sending something else, it is working perfectly. See, even if I'm refreshing it, it is working. So we need to figure it out something else. So instead of new, if I send create, let's see, if I send create, I think new is causing us an issue. What? This, oh my goodness. That new, I don't know why it is, this is so silly. I don't understand why exactly it is happening. If I click billboard here, now it is working fine. Even if you are refreshing, it is working fine. Let's make it sure. Let's confirm our theory. If I give new, and here also if I give new, if I hit enter, there we go. So we are getting an error. It's because of this term keyword, this new. So it's changed this to create, and now if you change this to something else, it will work. It is working. The problem is because of this new keyword. Okay, so instead of new, we can use the create. So that's the issue. I think so, but I'm not sure. But it's even now it's working. If you change this, see, it doesn't matter how many times if you're changing the route, it is working perfectly, right? So if you are sending the ID as a create, so that means we are the user that's who's trying to create a new billboard. If you are sending the original ID of that billboard, that means we need to fetch that data and we need to display the data for the user to make some alterations on it. And that's what we are about to do that. But I don't know why that error is being happening, but when I was preparing this video, that means before the deprecation it was working, but after the deprecations we are facing this issue. This happens. All right, so anyways, we fixed it over here, so it is working so far so good. So now let's move on to the next thing. All right then, so now we successfully figured out the issue and so far it's working fine. So let's see where in maybe in future what are the things we are going to face. I don't know. Anyways, let's move on. Right, so now we are inside this the billboard page where the user can able to create the new billboard, right? So now in this point, now what we need to do is, so this is the page, so let's go ahead. So in this page we need to get two different IDs. One is going to be your billboard ID and another one is going to be your store ID. So I'm gonna get that params, so params, and that's going to be the params. Wait a moment. All right, so now we have our params. So let's access the both of the params which we having inside our app, which is going to be the params again. And inside here we have the billboard ID. Make sure that you spelled properly. And of course, one more thing, that is going to be the store ID, and that is also going to be the string. This is the objects that we do have. So let's get those two. So first let's get the billboard ID. Billboard ID, which is going to be the params dot billboard ID. And of course we know that we do have the store ID, right? So now you can see the billboard ID is create. Now if you're changing this to anything else, of course that is going to give that specific ID, so which means it is working perfectly fine. It's working, and even it doesn't matter. Let me double verify it one more time. Okay, it's working. So now inside here, now what we have to do is we have to fetch this specific ID from the database. We have to fetch that ID from the database. So in order to do that, right after here, I'm gonna say const billboard is equals to let's get that object just like the same way. Open the value bracket and supply the get doc into it. Get doc, open it, and I'm gonna get the document, and I'm gonna supply the DB instance, and I'm going to supply the stores information, stores. Then await is showing an issue. It's because this function is supposed to be an asynchronous function. Here we go. Now I need to fetch the store first. So let's supply the store IDs from params dot store ID. So let's because billboards, it's going to be one of the sub collections inside your stores. So first you have to fetch the store information, then from there you have to get your billboards collection, and then you have to get that specific billboard, params dot billboard. So I'm gonna get the stores first, and inside the store I have the collection called billboards, and I'm going to fetch that specific billboard ID, and that is going to return me a data dot data. It's a function, and that is going to be the specific type of billboards which we created. So save these changes. This is how it looks. Okay, now inside here I'm just going to delete everything, all these things, so we don't need this because we know that it's working. So here I'm going to create div class name flex column, and inside here div class name flex1 space y is equals to 4 padding 8 and padding top it's going to be 6, and inside here I'm going to bring that billboard form. So we are going to build that billboard form, and it's going to have the initial data prop, which is going to be your billboard, which we have this billboard over here. So far, if you save this, you might get the issue that billboard form is not undefined because we haven't created that. So now what I'm going to do is, inside this, I'm going to create one more folder, and I'm going to keep it as components. And inside this, let me copy this, and I'm going to create a new billboard form.tsx. So that is going to be the billboard form. Okay, so basically this billboard form, of course, it is going to be exactly the same as our settings form. So let's go ahead and copy entire stuff, and I'm going to paste it inside our this billboard form, right? But instead of the settings form, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to change everything to billboard form, just like that. So save these changes, and let's bring it over here and import it inside here. And this is not going to be the this issue is coming, it's because, so right now let me show you. So settings, it's been loaded, but the problem, this issue is happening because the initial data, it's trying to look for store, but we have to change that to billboard. The initial data should load it as the billboard. So save these changes. Okay, save this initial data. Okay, so still we are getting an issue. Billboard is missing for the following type. Wait a minute, I changed it, but still why it's showing that issue? Okay, so the issues will be, we'll fix everything one by one. So the initial data should be the billboards. Okay, so the now initial data is going to be the billboards, so that's fine. Then, and what we have to do is, so make sure that it's been imported properly. Of course, it's imported from where? From the types. So let me delete that and let me re-import it one more time. Oh, come on. Billboards. Okay, so that is imported now. Fine. And now what I have to do is, we have to change the rest of the stuffs one after another. So basically for the form schema, we are not going to have the label, so I don't need this. So let me delete this custom message, and this label should have minimum one character, so it is going to be label. Then I'm going to copy and duplicate it. I'm going to have this, where is the types? So I'm going to have this image URL. Make sure they are same, label and image URL. All right, so now we do have that. So, and now we don't get the initial data error over here because we are having the matching form schema. So the issue will be finished. The reason why it is keep on showing that error is because I was altering everything in the settings form. It is my bad. Don't make these mistakes. Please make sure on what particular component that you're working, because when you're working with a very big project, this issues might happen. See, I was changing everything in the settings form instead of changing everything in the billboard form. Oh my god. Okay, so now instead of store over here, we have to change this to billboard. That's why I'm wondering why it is keep on showing that error over here. See, now that issue is gone because now we are changing it everything in the billboard forms. Come on. Okay, so now inside here, let's change this to 1, and instead of this, I'm gonna change this copy and paste label, and this is going to be the image URL. It's better copy and paste it because we don't want to run into any unwanted issues. So copy it and paste it, save these changes, right? So now this is the form schema, because the form should have the label and as well as it should have the image URL, right? So we created the form ourselves and we have all the necessary routers and parameters and everything. So don't worry about this APIs and everything, we'll fix that later. And for the delete also, of course, we'll fix it later. And headings, it's going to be the this is going to be so now the heading, it should be the basically the heading what we are getting. It's because right now we are in the create route. Create, that means we are going to create a new billboard. If you are passing an ID, the same heading should looks like edit your billboard. So what I'm going to do is sorry, so right after here I'm just going to say const so let's remove the unwanted stuff first. I don't need this origin and I don't need this over here. Let me delete it, and let me delete the unwanted imports as well as. So save these changes. Now you are not going to see that. So right after this const router, I'm going to create ourselves a custom title. So const title is equals to, if we do have the initial data, that means by using that ID, if you fetched your billboard, that means you need to display edit billboard, or else you have to display create billboard. Right, just like the same way we have to create the description. Const description is equals to, if you have the initial data, then you have to display edit a billboard. Otherwise here add a new billboard. That's the description. Then the success toast message. So const toast message is equals to initial data. If you have, then billboard updated. Otherwise billboard created. Right, then const action is equals to, if we do have the initial data, that means we are going to do save changes, which means we are trying to update it. If not, create billboard. These are the objects that we are trying to create over here. So right after that, and then what I need to do is, all I have to do is to map these things properly in their perfect in the location. So heading, title, of course the title, it's not going to be settings. Title, it's going to be the title object which we have, and the description, of course, it's going to be description object we have. All right, so and this destructive button, it's need to be displayed only if we have the initial data, then only we need to display that destructive button. Right, save the changes, and it's need to be disabled whenever it is being loading. Right, so save the changes, and now we can see we are getting the messages create billboard, because we know that create is not in our billboard, so we are in our collection, so that's the reason it's showing create a billboard. So now first thing it's going to be, so first form field, we need to bring the image URL. So before that, let's change this to label. Save it. Now we are not getting any issues, everything is perfectly fine. Label, and your billboard label, your billboard name, something like this. So label, or otherwise let's keep it as a name itself. Okay, name, billboard name. So we change this to label property. Fine. So right after this, now what I need to do is I need to bring an option for the user to upload the image. If you check it out over here, if I click add new, and you can see here we're having this options to upload that new image. So that's the thing, we are going to bring it over here now. So right after, this is the form field, right? This is the place where we are creating the form field, and right on the top of it, I'm gonna bring one more form field. Not here, because that is a grid. We don't need to keep it inside the grid, that need to be separately maintained. So form field, and inside here now this control is going to be the form dot control. Then Name, of course, it is going to be the image URL, this one, image URL. Then we are going to render. So we are going to get a callback function, and this is going to get the parameter as an object, and we are going to get the field inside in it. And inside this render function, I'm going to bring the form item, and I'm going to bring the form label, which is going to be the billboard image. Then form control, enter. And right after here, I'm going to bring a new component, because we are going to upload the image to the Firebase storage. We need to get back that URL, and we need to store that URL into this form, right? So I'm going to create a new component called image upload. So basically we have to create two different image uploads options. One is going to upload the multiple files, and two, it's going to upload a single file. So we can keep it as a reusable component, because it's going to have a lot of changes in that. If it is single file, we need to do something. If it is multiple file, we need to do something, because coding changing wise, we need to do a lot of stuff. So it's better for the beginner friendly. We can keep it as a two different separate component itself. Maybe if you wish to keep it as a single component, that's up to you. Okay, so now over here, so let's go ahead and create the image uploads options and everything. So let's create a new component. So what I'm going to do is, anyway, I can use this single image file upload anywhere at any point. So I'm going to create it inside here. So I'm just going to say image upload.tsx, right? So this is going to be use client. Then of course, and we are going to get the SFC is going to be image upload, and here we are going to have the image upload or something. Save these changes. Let's import it for the time being here. Save it. Okay, so we'll fix that issue, don't worry. Right now we are getting the image upload, that the division, it's loaded up over here, right? So sometimes this might cause you an hydration issues and all those things, because we are trying to load it is a client, and when you're trying to load these things in the server, of course sometimes it will cause you some hydration issues and everything. So we have to fix all those hydration issues and everything else. So let's go ahead one by one. So here first we need to create the interface image upload props, open it. So it is going to have a disabled, this is an optional, and that is going to be a boolean disabled. Then on change we are going to get the value as a string type, and it's going to return the void. Copy and paste it. And this is going to have on remove function, because we need to remove that URL as well. And the value, of course, it is going to be a string of array. Save the changes. Okay, so now what we have to do is we have to bring this restructure your props from image upload props. So what are the things that we need? We need to have the disable prop, and we need to have the on change prop, and we need to have on remove prop, and we need to have the value prop. Save these changes. Now, okay, so now let's go ahead and fix all those things over here. So for this disable, so value, what you are going to do is, I'm going to get the field dot value. If I do have that field dot value, then I'm going to supply it as an array, because we are expecting an array inside. So I'm going to supply it as an array. Otherwise, I'm supplying it as an empty array, right? So disable, if it is disabled, that means if it is loading state is true, it should be disabled. And on change, that's the function. And for that, I'm going to keep it as an empty function. And for on remove, on remove, I'm going to keep that empty function for the time being. Later we have to change these things, so don't worry now. So now the issues, everything is gone inside your billboard form. So I'm going to close everything towards the right side of it. So close everything to the right and close everything, close others. Let's open it. So let's keep it clean because we don't want to touch anything else. So now we are inside the image upload. So inside the image upload, so we have to first fix the hydration issues. So what I'm going to do is, so use state is equals to is mounted. By default, it is going to be false. And use state, of course, we're going to have the loading state. So is loading. Then by default, it is going to be false. Then we need to get the progress of the uploading status. So use state progress. These are the states that we needed. And of course, it is going to be 0 and it's going to be the type of number, right? Save these changes. Now inside here, use effect, set is mounted. It is going to be true and it should have an empty array of dependencies. Okay, these are the things. Now what we have to do is, if it is not mounted, if it is not mounted, then of course we are going to return the null. That means we are in the server side, we have to return it null. If it is not on server side, on client side, we have to do all the stuffs what we are looking to do. All right, so this fix the hydration issue just like the same way what we did for the models and everything. Now instead of this, okay, so now what I need to do is, if I have the value, if I have the value and the value dot length, if it is greater than 0, then what I need to do, I need to display the image over here. If I don't have the value, then I need to bring that image container, the place where the user can upload it. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to check whether I do have the value or not. If I do have the value and the value dot length is greater than 0, because we are sending it as an array. If it is greater than 0, then we have to do something. So I'm just going to keep an empty fragment for the time being. And inside here now, inside here, I'm going to create a div, because right now we know that it is not, we don't have any value. So class name, which is going to be width, of course, I'm going to fix it to 52 and height also 52. And I'm going to make it as a rounded MD, and overflow should be hidden. And border, of course, it's going to be dashed border, and border gray is going to be 200, something like that. All right, and everything should be in the center. So flex item center, justify center, and flex column, and gap, of course, it's going to be 3. Save these changes, and let me bring the word wrap. Okay, so we are not getting the border. Why? Border. Yeah, now we are getting the border. All right. So now we have to check whether it is loading or not. If it is loading, we have to if it is loading, so we have to fix that issue, right? So if it is loading, we have to display that loading animation, or else we have to display that the image uploading options, right? So here I'm just going to check if it is loading, then I'm going to display something. If it is not, I'm going to display something. So inside here, if it is loading, so we have to bring that puff loader. So basically we don't have that, so I'm going to install that. So here npm install React spinners. So that's the thing that we are trying to install. So install it, and we are going to get that puff loader from there. Okay, it's not giving me, so let me import it. Import from React spinners, and I'm going to get that puff loader, and here I'm gonna bring that puff loader, and that is going to be the size of the puff loader is going to be 30. Then the color, of course, it's going to be #555. So save these changes. So for the time being, let's change this to true. Now you can see we having that loading animation over there. Fine. So, and then right after, underneath it, we need to display that progress as well. So how much progress, how many percentage it's been progressed. So I'm just going to say progress. I'm going to return it as a string. So this is going to be $/progress dot to fixed of, we don't need more than 2 decimal units, so to fixed it to 2 decimal units, and then percentage sign. All right, so if it is true, and you can see it is 0.00 percentage, right? It's because we, by default, the progress is 0, so we can display that progress, that number over there. Or if you wish to keep any other progress animations, that up to you, you can customize it in this location. Then right after here, I'm gonna create a label. Okay, now inside this label, I'm going to create a div, and the div is going to be a class name of width full, height full, and flex column. Gap is going to be 2, and item center, and justify center, and cursor is going to be pointer. All right, so save this changes. Now inside here, I'm going to bring the image plus icon from the lucid. So class name, height, of course, it's going to be 4, width is going to be 4, and the paragraph tag, it's going to be upload an image, right? Then underneath it, after this division, I'm going to bring an input tag, which is going to be a file, which helps us to choose it. So on change, whenever there is a change, I'm going to call a function called on upload, which we haven't created, and it should accept any kind of image. So image slash star. Then class name, I don't need, because if you don't give anything over here, see, let me hide it. So if you check it out right now, you can see we are getting this awkward file option. So we don't want that. So in order to do that, what we can do is width, of course, it's going to be 0, and height, of course, it's going to be 0. Don't make it hidden, otherwise you can't do anything. Now, if I click this, that should bring that if I click anywhere inside this division, okay, if I click anywhere, so you can see we are getting this options to choose any image whatever we selected. So I'm going to call this, enable this, and I'm going to create this on upload function, because this is the function where we are going to have that. So right after here, so const on upload is going to be, and this is going to be an asynchronous function, async, right? And it's going to get an event, and basically the event is going to be any type, because we need to access that file, right? So const, I'm going to get that file, and I'm going to get that file from the e.target.files. We are going to get an array, and I'm going to get that specific file, and I'm going to say console.log. I'm going to display that file right now. So inspect the elements, go to the console, and if I choose an upload option, and if I choose this image, and if I click this, and now you can see we are getting the image2.png, image file type, and everything we are getting over here. Now what I have to do is I have to upload this image to the storage, right? So in order to do that, so you can refer your document, and you can get to the storage, and you can click the web, and you can choose upload files option, and that is going to give you the complete documentation how to upload the images and everything. So I'll strongly recommend you to have a look at this documentation, because this is what we are going to do now. We are going to use this upload byte resumables to upload the bytes, and this gives you 3 different options to pause or again continue the running. So you can pause while you are uploading, but in this case we are not going to do pause, running, and all those state. We are just going to upload the image, and we are going to calculate the progress, and we are going to get back that download URL which is uploaded successfully. All right, so right after here, now what we are going to do is I'm going to get the try and catch block. If there is any error, I'm just going to say toast.error, which is something went wrong. All right, and finally I'm just going to say set is loading as false, which means once the try is started, set is loading, of course it is going to be true. Otherwise, okay, since by default itself it's handling the error, we don't need the try and catch over here. So let's keep it as it is. So set this loading, of course it is going to be true. Set this as true. Then right after that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create const upload task, just exactly the same way what I did over here, what they are doing over here. All right, so upload task, and I'm going to use this upload byte resumables from the Firebase storage. Open it. Then we need to use the reference objects to create the storage reference, and we do have the storage instance which we created from our library Firebase. By the time when you are exporting the database instance, we exported the storage instance also. So I'm going to create a new folder called image in that, and then slash, and I'm going to use this append with date dot now callback function, and right after that I'm going to join our file name too. So $file dot name, along with that we're going to join the file name. Right, this is the information that we need to supply. Then we need to supply the file object. So right after this bracket, which means the reference bracket, you need to supply your file. Then you need to supply the content type, which is going to be the file dot type. This is how it should looks. So open the upload byte resumables. It's going to have three different parameters. One, it's your reference, that the storage reference. So you need to use the reference method and supply your storage object and create your file name. Then you need to supply your file which you selected. Then you need to supply the content type, which is the metadata, and this is optional. You don't have to do it, but it's better to do it. So these are the things, and right after that we have to start our upload task. So now I can start the upload task dot on. I'm going to call this event name called state changed. Whenever there is a state change is happening, we are going to get three different functions: function number 1, and function number 2, and function number 3. These are the three different functions that you will get. On the first function, you are going to get the snapshot object, which is nothing but you will get your state, that pausing or running state or uploading state, those kinds of state. And the second one is going to be your error. You need to handle, in case if you are ran into any specific error, you need to handle your error at this point. And at last, this is the place, if there is no errors or no issues and happening in this particular situation, this is the place where you will get your download URL, right? So right after here, I'm going to store my progress. So you can calculate the progress just from here. I'm going to copy this, just exactly the same thing. You don't have to change anything. So then I'm going to say set progress. I'm just going to paste it inside exactly as it is. I'm not even changing anything. Then if there is any error, I'm just going to say toast.error, and I'm going to raise that error message. I will get that error.message. I'm going to display that error message. If there is no issues on anything, I'm going to copy this. This is the place. This is how you can get your download URL. Copy it, and please make sure that you imported the download URL, and make sure that this upload task or the snapshot, everything is perfectly fine. The same variable name that you're using for upload task and for the snapshot. Then I'm going to download that URL, and that is that my uploaded image URL. So that's the image URL. I have to send it to my front end. So which means over here, I need to send it. So for that on change, I'm going to send that download URL. So this on change function, which means now we have to customize our on change function. So for the on change function, I'm sending an URL. So I have to capture that URL over here. So I'm going to capture that URL. Then I'm going to supply that URL to our on change. So field dot on change, I'm going to supply that URL, which means whenever this on change event is be triggered, it's going to pass the URL. That URL will trigger the form field on change event, and it will pass to as the value. So that will be assigned for this particular property, right? That's what we are going to do here. And exactly the same thing we are going to do. Again, I'm going to call whenever I'm removing field dot on change, I'm going to supply an empty strings. That is what we are going to do whenever you're removing it, right? So save this changes. So far I think this is so far good. On change, and at last we need to say set is loading. Of course it is going to be false. Save this changes. Now left refresh it, and let's get back to your storage property and make sure that you enable the rules and everything. I hope I already enabled the rules. Think so. Let's wait. Yep, I already enabled the rules, and we don't have any specific folder over here called image or something, because that is what we try to create. So let me create this folder name as images. So save these changes. And now if I try to click it, and if I try to upload any specific image, for instance, let's say if I choose this thumbnail, and if I click, okay, I think I have the images stored. So you can access all these images from the link which I mentioned in the description below. So click that and you can access it. So click the link and you can access these images. And in this case, I'm just going to choose these banners. So I'm going to choose this banner 1, and if I click open, and now we can see it is loading and it's uploading. Perfect. And once it's been uploaded, and we are getting that image and it's been displaying over here. So let's go ahead and make sure that the images is uploaded. Let me refresh it. We are not getting anything. Then where it is being uploaded? Storage. Is it uploaded in my project? Oops, my bad. I was uploading in my previous project. We need to check it on our local host project. So click here. That's what I'm wondering. So click here and click upload. Damn, it's so confusing. Let me keep it outside. Yeah, now it is uploaded, and here we go. See, it is uploaded and we got the image as well as. So if we do have the value something and we are not doing anything over here, right? So let's go here now and let me refresh this now for the time being. Refresh it. Now we are getting the images folder, and inside the images folder we have the file which we uploaded, right? Cool, it's working fine. So now if we have the value, so if you have the value, now what we have to do, we have to display that text. Now so we have to display that image over there. So here, right after here, I'm going to create a div, and inside the div I'm going to have a class name with a relative position, and of course width, of course it's going to be 52, and height of course is also going to be 52, and rounded it's going to be medium, and overflow of course it's going to be hidden. And we need to supply the key prop. So key of course it's going to be the URL, right? So okay, oops, I missed a step, so cut it. And here let's create one more div, and I'm just going to say margin bottom, of course it's going to be 4, and flex, item center, and gap, of course it's going to be 4. Inside here I need to, because since the value is an array, so we need to map through every single URL inside in it. Open it and create a div. So now it is perfectly fine, and now inside this div I'm going to display that image. So let's create an image, next image, enter. And here now what we have to do, I'm going to fill this, and I'm going to say class name, this is going to be object cover, then alternative it's going to be billboard image, then source of course it's going to be the URL. So save these changes. If you save it, we might run into an issue, which means because okay, so now let's try to upload it one more time. Choose this, click upload. It is being uploaded, and here we go. So we are getting this because this host name is not configured, right? So we have to configure this host name. So we have to get back to our where it is, next config.mjs. So over here, enter. So what we have to do is we have to configure our host name over here. So for the images, I'm gonna configure the remote patterns, which is going to be array, and we can have an object in it, and that we're going to give the host name over here. So whatever the image coming from this specific host name, we can able to load it now. So refresh it. So if you refresh it, the state will be vanished. We have to upload it one more time. Let me choose the same image one more time, and it's uploading. And now we should able to see that image. Here we go. See, now the image is being displayed. Now on the top of this on this image, we should bring a button so the user can able to delete that button, delete that image. So we have to bring that options too. So in order to do that, let's go ahead and create a button for the user to delete that option. So what I'm going to do is right inside here, I'm going to create a div and I'm going to make this as an absolute, and it should be always on top of the thing. And from the top, I'm going to move 2 points, and right, I'm going to move 2 points, which is 8 pixel. And inside here, I'm going to bring a button which is coming from UI. So let's change this to @components @/components button. All right, now inside this button, I'm gonna say variant. Of course, it is going to be destructive, and size, of course, it is going to be the size of icon. And inside here, I'm gonna say trash dot lose it icon, and let's say class name height, of course it's going to be 4, width, of course it's going to be 4, right? So this should be a type of button because it is going to be inside a form, so it should be a type of button. If it isn't, if you're not mentioning it, then form will by defaultly trigger your submit event. So on click, whenever I'm clicking it, I'm gonna delete this. I'm going to create a function called on delete function, and I'm going to supply that URL. And I'm going to supply that URL. So let's go ahead and create this function. So using that URL only, we can delete that URL from our Firebase storage. So URL, of course, it's going to be string. Enter. Right? And this function needs to be no. So first we have to remove. Using the on remove, you can make sure and supply the value in it, right? So delete object. So we are going to delete the object which is coming from your Firebase storage, and I'm going to supply the reference, open it, then supply the storage reference, then supply your URL. Sorry, not value. So you have to supply your URL over here. So this on remove function is for our removing the value from our form, right? Not from your storage. This is for our removing the value from your storage. So if everything is happening perfectly, then open it, a callback function, and it's going to say toast.success image removed. Save these changes. All right, now you can see we have this delete option, and let's go here and check it out. So inside the images folder, we having 3 different images. Now if I delete this, we should get only 2 of them over there. You can see now we have only 2. So let me, for the confirmation, let me delete everything from here, and let me click uploading. Let me choose this. It's uploading, and we are getting that image, and you can see the image, it's been successfully uploaded over here. We are having that, and now if I click delete, image is removed, and if I check it out over here, just if you refresh it, you can see we don't have that image, which means the image is uploaded successfully and it's working perfectly. Now all we have to do is to get back to the Billboard forms, and we have to make sure whether we are getting these 2 values, and we have to create ourselves a separate API routes and everything to store this Billboard details, and that's what we are going to do next. All right, then, since we successfully uploaded the images in our Firebase storage and deleted all those things, so now what we have to do is we have to save, get these two image URL and the name of the billboard, and we have to upload it to our Firestore collection. So in order to do that, so let's make sure whether we are getting the details or not. So what I'm going to do is, this is the place where we are getting the form, right? So I'm just going to comment it, and I'm just going to say console.log data. Let's check it out. And here I'm just going to upload an image, choose an image, and I'm going to give one test billboard, right? Let me click console and go to the console, and here if I click save changes, now we can see we are getting the label and we are getting the image URL. So now we have the respective things which we needed. So let me close this. Okay, so now if I refresh this, it's fine. So now what I have to do is let's jump into the API folder. So all we have to do is to create an API to work with the that specific billboard. Okay, so now what I have to do is inside, so here, so this billboard comes under a specific store ID. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is app API. So we have the store ID, and inside the store ID, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder called billboards. That's the thing, that's what we are going to do. So we are going to create a new folder over here, new folder, and that folder is going to be billboards. Okay, billboards, billboards. Now inside the billboards, now we are going to create that route.ts. So here you have to create a new file called route.ts, right? That's the thing. Fine. Now overall here, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a post method and I'm going to create a get method, two different methods over here. So let's go ahead and start creating that first now. All right, so first we are going to create the post method. Okay, so now what we have to do is let's create a route over here. So let's say export const post method. This is going to be a post method, and this is going to be an asynchronous method. So asynchronous, and open a function, and this function is going to take a request, which is going to be a request type. Then we need to get the params. So I'm going to break this. I'm going to get the params over here, and this is going to be type of a params, and which is going to have the params object over here. So this is going to have a store ID, and that is going to be a string. So please make sure the store ID matches this exact same store ID over here. All right, so now what I'm going to do is, so I'm just going to copy some stuff exactly from here, or so I'm just going to copy this try and catch, and I'm going to paste it inside here. So few of the stuffs we don't need it. I'm just going to delete this from here, or from here to here. So we don't need that. So let's make sure, let's import this auth from clerk and next response. Okay, so now we do have that. So now what I have to do is I have to get the body, and I need to extract the label and the image URL. So I have to get the label and the image URL, so which is going to be just exactly the same way as over here. So just like that. So now if there is no label, if not label, billboard name is missing, billboard name is missing. And I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it one more time. If not image URL, then billboard image is missing. Okay, so that should fix that thing. And now what I need to do is, if this store ID, if the param.store ID is not there, then what we have to do, we have to say If not that store id, sorry, params.store id, then this is supposed to be store id is missing, something like that. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I need to do this operation only if that store id only if the store was successfully created by the authenticated user. So we have to create this billboard only if that user created that particular store id, right? So let's go ahead and try to do that. So first I have to fetch that store. So const store is equals to await get doc, and I need to supply that, I need to get the doc which is going to be from Firestore, and I need to supply the DB instance. Then I need to fetch that information from the stores collection. Then I'm gonna try to fetch the matching store ID data from. So now I will have that store reference. So if the store dot exists, if it is exist, so this function is going to return a boolean value. So let's store data is equals to store dot data. So we're going to extract this data and keep it in the local variable. So if that store data dot user id, if the store data if has the user id, if it is not equals to the authenticated user id, in that's the case this store is not created by that specific user. So we have to return new next response as unauthorized access, and then I have to return the status as 500. Okay, if not, then what I have to do, I have to create the billboard data. Const billboard data is equals to open it. I have to supply the label, then I have to supply the image URL, then I have to supply created at, so which is going to be exactly the same thing just like what we did over here, create at, which is going to be the server timestamp from the Firestore. Okay, and now as usual what we did for the exactly the same thing for the stores, we have to create the document, then we have to get the ID, then we have to update the document. So I'm just going to say const billboard reference is equals to await add doc. So we're gonna add the doc with the specific collection of this DB, and inside that we're gonna access that stores. Then we have to supply the params.store ID. Then I have to access the billboards, right? This is the place I'm gonna store, and I'm gonna supply the billboard data. This is the data that I'm gonna store. All right, so this is going to save that information. Now I need to get the ID. So const ID is equals to billboard reference dot ID. Now I have the ID, and now I need to update. So let's say await update doc, open it, and doc, and I need to get the database instance, open the document, supply the database instance, then supply the stores, then supply the params.store ID because we need to fetch that store ID. Then inside that we do have one more sub collection called billboards, and please make sure this is exactly matches each other. Then I need to supply that ID because that's the specific billboard which we created right now, and we are trying to fetch it exactly immediately. Then I'm going to supply the data which I need to update. So I'm going to destructure the complete billboard data which I already have. Then along with this I'm going to supply the ID. Then along with that I'm going to supply this updated at, and we are going to send the server timestamp to it, just like that. So now all we have to do is to write after here, we have to return next response dot JSON, then open it, ID comma billboard data. So save these changes. All right, this is going to be the post method. All right, So now we have to create the exact same thing like the get method, which is going to get the details. So all I have to say export const get is equals to asynchronous method. Otherwise what we can do is we can simply copy this and we can simply replace this and change this to get method, and I don't need this body. I can simply delete all these things and these things too. Let's delete this, save it. All right, so now all I don't have to get the user ID also, because that is not necessary, because since we are going to get the entire billboard, so this is not necessary. So okay, so then this is also not needed. Fine, just the params.id is more than enough. And now what I'm going to do is const billboard data, billboards data is equals to, open the value bracket, await get docs, open it, and set the collection, open it, and you have to fetch the doc, open it, then you have to supply the database instance, then you have to supply the collection name, then params.store id, then from there I need to get the billboards. Okay, so billboards id, and yeah, fine. So let's copy this. Okay, so basically we are trying to access that, first we are trying to access that complete store id collection, then right after here now I need to supply the second collection, that is going to be the billboards. We are trying to access that entire thing, right? And then so await get docs collection doc db stores params.store id, we are fetching the billboards, and this is going to return the, I think over here dot docs. No, we are missing something. Let me delete this and let me type it. Oh, okay, my bad. This should be wrapped, this entire stuff should be wrapped inside one more value bracket, then over here I need to get the complete docs. So because when I save this, the prettier removed that value bracket previously what I added, so that's not supposed to have. This is how it looks. So I just wrapped it inside the values bracket, then at the end of this bracket then I need to get the complete docs, then I need to map it with map, and I need to access the every single document in it, then I need to get that doc dot data. So that is going to return the array of records with this specific type billboards of array, right? Because we know that this is going to return the array of records and that should matches the type of billboards array. All right, now we have that. Then finally what we can do, return next response dot json billboards data. So save these changes. Now I hope this will work perfectly fine. Now all we have to do is to get back to the billboards form, right? That's the place where we are submitting the data. This is the place. So I don't need to console log it, just remove it. And I'm going to, so this is going to be axios.post method, and it should goes to the API, not stores. This time it's going to that specific store ID. So let's delete it. It should goes to the specific store ID. Then it should access this inside the API we have the store ID, then it should access that specific billboards. So we need to write after here, it needs to send to the billboards. Okay, billboards, and then but this is coming from, the problem is over here we are not just going to right, the way we design the entire billboard is because, so you can see here, either if you have this ID over here, which means we already have the initial data, at that point you have to update it. If you don't have, only we are going to create it, right? So we just created the post request, just exactly the same way we have to create the patch also. So let's finish this first, then we can move on to that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut it out. So every time before doing something, I'm just going to make sure if I have the initial data, which means we do have it, we have to update it. If we don't have, only we are going to create it. So at that point, I'm gonna keep this and I'm going to bring it at the bottom. Okay, so over here I'm just going to say slash API slash params.slow slash API billboard, and then data, we supplying the data, so that is going to return a specific response. Okay, so we don't need to get that response because I'm not going to do anything with that response, so it's deleted. So once it is done, so here I just need to send the message as toast message, right? That's enough. Then I just have to get the router dot refresh, and finally we have to push the user to router dot push the user to the curly brackets, the string literals, then slash dollar curly brackets params dot store id slash billboards. Once it's successfully created, we need to push the user to the exact same location back, right? Either it is updated or it is created, it doesn't matter. Now let's check it out whether we are getting the, is there any issues or anything. Let's click the inspect elements and let's get back to the network, stop it, and I think I need to run my server npm run dev. So it's up and running. So let me, not this one, create inspect elements network. So far nothing is there. Let's rerun it. So it's loading. All right, so now we got something over here. So let me try to upload some image. Uploaded it, choose it, and let's say test billboard. Okay, so now we have the images and everything. Now if I click this changes, it should call this and it's going to verify whether it is having the initial data or not. If it is have, we need to update it. If it is not, you need to call this API params dot store id billboards data. So if I click save changes, we are getting an error 404 API store id billboards. We are getting an error. Post method, we are getting an error over here. App API oops, my bad. The store ID, it's need to be created in your API folder, not inside your stores folder, right? So I just have to move this folder to the API, move it. So now under the API, I do have the store ID. So let me stop it. And if I click this now, we are getting that billboards, and look at that. We are getting the message as 200, and the payload is going to be, this is the payload, and the response, this is the response. It is successfully created. Okay, and if I get over here and if I click this images, you should get that image, and it's the same point in the Firestore database. You should get one new sub collection in it, billboards, and it should have the data in it, just like that. So we successfully created the billboard, and it's successfully pushed back to the billboards over here, right? So in this situation, now what I have to do is, so now we have to do the same stuff. So just exactly the same thing what we did. Instead of post method, we have to do the exact same stuff for patch method, right? So what we are going to do is, so when you're trying to update, at that point what we need the billboard ID, which means once it comes inside the store ID and once it comes inside the billboard, I need to create one more route over here called billboard ID. So I'm going to copy this post method because that's the thing we needed. I'm going to copy that post method and I'm going to put it inside this billboard. I'm going to create a new route .ts and I'm going to paste it. But at this point, this time, instead of post method, this is going to be the patch, because that's the place where we are going to update. We need the auth and we need the next response. If we don't have the user ID or label or anything, everything is going to be returned. Let's get the get doc db. So, but we have to make few minute changes in this. That's all we have to do. So in this specific route, what we have to do is, all we have to do a very minor changes. So we have to get the billboard ID as well as, because so we are getting the store ID, and it's the same way we have to fetch this billboard ID too. So let's copy this billboard ID and let's paste it over here, and that is supposed to be the string. All right, so just exactly the same way how I am checking the store ID, I have to do the same stuff for the billboard ID. So billboard ID is missing. All right, so right after then, so we have to fetch the store just exactly the same way, and we are checking the user whether it is be having the authorized access or not. So now all I have to do is to get the billboard reference. So I don't have to create the data over here because I know I do already have the data. So I just have to get the billboard reference. So instead of add doc, I just need to supply the, so what we can do is, instead of this, I'm just going to literally delete it and we can recreate it. So const billboard reference is equals to await get doc, open it, enter doc. We are going to get the doc with the db instance from where? From the stores. I need to access a store from using the params.store ID. Then inside that I do have this billboards. That is, from that I'm going to access that billboard by using this billboard ID, right? So now I have this billboard reference, and I just need to make sure if that billboard reference dot exists. If it is exists, then we need to open this if condition. I'm going to say await update doc, open it, send the doc db comma stores. Make sure this is lowercase, so this is might happens, stores. Then we have to supply the params dot store ID. Then you have to supply the billboards. Make sure that you are typing exactly the same thing, billboards. And I'm going to access that params dot that specific billboard by using its ID. Then now I have to supply the data. So I'm going to get that billboard reference dot data, whatever the data it's already having, we have to destructure it. Along with that, I'm going to supply the label and the image URL, because label property, if the label property it's already there, it's going to override it. If it is not there, it is going to recreate it, right? So then after that, I'm gonna supply this updated at where it is. I'm gonna supply this updated at exactly over here. So let's make sure that is imported, right? So now if it is already existed, these are the steps it's going to run. If it is not existed, if the document is not, then I'm just going to say return new next response as billboard not found with the status as 404, right? Once you have everything is fine, now what I have to do, I have to fetch that billboard data, the updated billboard data, then I have to return that billboard to the user. So const billboard, because we updated it, but we have to fetch it one more time. So it's equals to open the value bracket, await get doc, open it, supply the doc db instance stores, then you have to supply the params dot store id, then you have to supply the billboards with the params dot billboard id. So now we have that doc, and over here I'm going to get that data, and that is going to be exactly the billboards, matches the type of the billboards. And finally I'm just going to return the updated billboard, save these changes. So this is going to be what exactly how it's supposed to be. And finally this needs to be called when I'm going to copy this and I'm going to call this over here. So but this time instead of post, this is going to be the patch, and the API we are supplying the store ID and we are supplying the billboards, and right after here I need to supply the billboard ID too. So params dot billboard ID, which means I have to get the billboard ID too. So from the params you will have use params, you will have that billboard ID. Okay, so this billboard ID should match this billboard ID. Please make sure that matches that specific billboard ID, because if it is not matching, this API will never work. Okay, so billboard ID. All right, and you have to supply the data, so everything should work perfectly as it is. All right, so we have to fix this on delete as well as we have to fix the delete as well as, which means we have to create a separate route for this, just like the same way how we updated it. We have to create a separate route for deleting it too. So what I'm going to do is, so literally I'm just going to copy this, and I'm going to paste it, and I'm just going to rename this to delete. We need this both, and we don't need this body, which means we don't need these at all. And we need to get the store. If the store is existed, we need to make sure the unauthorized access or not. Then if you scroll down, we have to get that doc reference of that specific billboard, just exactly the same way what we did. Now we have the billboard reference. Then if the billboard existed, instead of updating it, I just have to delete it, right? That's what we are going to do. So await delete reference, delete doc, supply that billboard reference in it. Okay, so this get doc is not necessary because we are just supplying the reference. So this is, since if it is If you are using await get doc, we are getting an what is that? We are getting query snap issue over here. All right, so instead of making it more complex, let's keep it as simple. So I'm just going to delete this, and I don't need this if condition, delete it, and I don't need this too. So we are going to fetch that billboard reference and we are going to delete it, simple as that. Okay, so this is going to delete that billboard reference completely, and every time before deleting this billboard reference, we have to make sure that the image URL which is inside that billboard document should be removed from our Firebase storage, and that is what we have to do. So we can do it directly through the API over here by fetching the document, delete the document from there, or you already have the data in your hand over here, so I can delete it directly from here inside the billboard form itself. So every time whenever I'm coming to here and to delete the data, so this is the thing, right? So I'm just going to copy this exactly because that is the data that we need to pass, copy and paste it over here, right, which is going to be delete. It should goes to /API/params.store ID billboards and billboard ID, and it's going to delete it. And before that, now what I need to do is I need to get the image URL from the form which is already being loaded. So in order to do that, so what I'm going to do is right after here, I'm just going to say const, I'm going to access the form, and from that I'm going to access the get value method, so I can extract the image URL from the form. So now I have that image URL in my hand. So I'm just going to say delete object. Okay, so we can make this await delete object. Let's open it and let's apply the reference, and this reference should take the storage object, and that storage object, along with that we are supplying the image URL. So if everything is successfully deleted, so this is going to be an asynchronous method again. Inside here I'm gonna supply this. Okay, I'm gonna delete this, which means we are fetching the image URL from the form, because once we display the data table, so let's just like this, once I display the data tables, and if I click this and if I click update, so this is going to be loaded just like the same way over here. So I can access this image URL before, whenever I'm clicking to delete this, I'm going to access this image URL from the form itself, and I'm going to remove it from our Firebase storage. That is what we are doing over here. So once the image URL is deleted from that storage, which means the image is deleted, now I can delete the document. So that's the reason I'm accessing that API by just like /API params.store ID billboards params.billboard ID. So that is going to delete that. Then I'm going to give the message as over here. I'm just going to give the message as billboard removed, which is going to be that. And finally, instead of pushing the user to slash over here, I'm going to push the user to the exact same location of this. Okay. So if the delete is not working, so at some point this router.reference will not work properly. We'll worry about this later. If it is not working, we have to forcefully reload this entire location. So I will show you how to do that later, right? So save these changes. Now we did everything what it's supposed to be done. Now all we have to do is to bring the data table and load the entire data over here. So that's what we are going to do next.